Hello and welcome. My name is Ulysses, and today I'm going to take you through a musical design exploration that I've been busy tinkering with for the past few days, and now I have completed and it is ready for public consumption. So basically, I have been on a bit of a hook of sorts where musical design has been a fascination. And so I've gone through a bunch of online tutorials and such, and I came up with this short little demo of a musical system that I think demonstrates what is so fun and interesting about musical design at a very, 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 very small scale. The fact that music can be a feedback system instead of just wallpaper in the background for any game and stuff. So today I want to demonstrate how music builds atmosphere as well as creates a sense of gameplay feedback through a player interacting with the environment and the music reflecting that. Before I get started, I want to just illustrate the fact that this is a generic example for a system that could be expanded into broader capabilities and such. So I will take you through what each of these different areas of this small map represent and just generally what my thoughts are on how it could be expanded and used. Additionally, I also just want to mention that this is not a tutorial, it is a breakdown, meaning that I'm not actually going to expand upon any of the blueprints, code, or wise systems that I've set up. I'm mostly just going to explain what the thought process is behind each of these ideas, and I guess what are the important points to note. The reason being is that this information isn't that hard to find. As I said, I'm using WISE as a basis, and the WISE 201 course pretty much covers everything you would need to know for this topic. And then more generally speaking, the Unreal coding side of things are just blueprints of trigger boxes telling WISE, hey, when the player's in this area or within your vicinity, do this. Set state, set this switch to X, Y, or Z. And so not complicated in the slightest. It just takes a tiny bit of searching to find. All right, let's get started. There are 5 areas in total for this musical demo, and this first area allows you to get acquainted with your movement controls as well as camera controls. There is also a jump button. As you can hear, the music in the background is looping on a simple musical motif, and regardless of where the player moves in this area, that motif will continue infinitely. The point being that the only way to progress the game is to progress forward into Area 1, and as soon as you do, Area 1 music starts playing. Each area is configured with what is known as a trigger box, and each trigger box sends information that is specifically linked to itself that says, hey, the player is in this area, WISE, can you please play the music associated for this area as I have defined. So as soon as we move back into the start area, you will hear the intro music return to its simple loop. What's worth noting about these trigger box transitions as well is the fact that WISE is giving a simple tempo locked instruction on how the music should play, meaning that the music will never appear in a awkward fashion. It'll always be linked to the downbeat as I have designated in WISE. So if I cross over into Area 1 again, yeah, the music appears on the downbeat. That brings us to the first idea of the overall purpose of this musical demo, the fact that there are 2 functions that I see music performing in games. The first is to build atmosphere and emotional vibe capacity for players, and the second is to form a functional relationship in the game environment to reflect the environment to the player or illustrate that a critical understanding or message is trying to be delivered, or a suggestion is trying to be delivered to the player. What that means is each area is divided into 3 ideas: a critical path, a deviation, and an area for optional interactions. Keeping with the idea of feedback, the game tries to suggest through music that when the player is not on a critical path of progressing through the game, a musical piece of information is going to be removed. And in this case, I've designated that as the drums. And yes, as you can hear, the drums have been taken out, and to me this signifies that, rather, drums signify that there is a rhythmic pulse stability that the player is now missing, and as a result they have this subtle reminder that they are not progressing towards the end of the game. They are in an area that they are effectively wandering in for their own purposes or aims or goals, but if they want to get back to the critical path, then they need to look for an area that has the initial motif that they were introduced to. That being the full motif of synth, piano, and bass. The second idea is that of optional interactions. This area, and the ones that we will see subsequently, is organized by 2 buttons that say increase and reset. Now, much like the trigger boxes, these small spheres have radiuses that are not apparent to the player, but as soon as you come into their radius and press the spacebar, it will increase a objective counter. The idea of these objective counters is that whenever the player interacts with an NPC or environmental clue of some sort, the game might want to link the 2 ideas together. So, say I complete a dialogue path with a character, the objective score might go up, and as a reward, the player will get a new piece of musical information. So, yes, I've spoken to the NPC, and they have now completed their quest line. To reflect that, the music now tells me that you get this melody as a reward. And that's a simple idea. With this being a generic example, I've organized the scale of this objective marker into 3 phases. 0 indicates that there are no objectives completed, 1 indicates that there are partial objectives, and 2 indicates that the full range of objectives has been completed. So when I increase the score to 2, the full broader range of musical information will come in, and that'll be the player's reward for interacting as the devs have maybe envisioned throughout this whole first area. And yeah, as you can hear, there are drum accents, a supporting harmony, and an alteration of the main melody. And then for the purposes of examples, there is a reset button that pulls the subjective score back to 0. And yeah, that is the main idea, the fact that we can tie objectives to musical motifs. Now, just to make a further example of how the deviation areas work in conjunction with the full range of musical information, then I'll wander over here. And yeah, I hope that also just exemplifies the fact that the music feels a lot more calm and stable, but as soon as you bring the drums back in, it feels like you're moving towards something. Okay, that is area 1 done. We are now going to go into area 2 and The reason why I'm resetting the objective score is just so that we can hear how area 2 builds over time as opposed to being completed from the get-go. So this is area 2. And yeah, now we're hearing a lot more atmospheric development, as I was saying beforehand. Area 1 felt more playful. Area 2 is supposed to feel a bit more mysterious. Yeah, if we go to, let's go to deviation first, just to make an example of what being off the critical path sounds like. And then we come back to the critical path. And within this next area, I'm going to make an example of the fact that whenever we introduce musical information, it is never introduced in an awkward way, much like the transition zones of each trigger box of each area. Instead, when a new musical idea is being introduced, it will always wait for a specific point in Wise's definition of musical cues for things to come in. Meaning that if a melody is playing, it'll finish its whole phrase instead of awkwardly coming in the middle of a phrase or awkwardly going out at the middle of a phrase. So if I increase the subjective score, yeah, the musical ideas are introduced at very natural points. And if I increase it again, it takes a while for some of the musical pieces of information to absolutely come in, and also if we reset everything, some of this information doesn't just leave. It takes a bit of time for it to like fully die down and fade out. Then just going back to the deviation zone, make a further example of how it sounds when we're off the critical path. Yeah, note that now we are playing drum accents as opposed to the main drum loop that gives like the punchier in your face forward momentum. But if we come back to the critical path, drum pattern that comes back with more energy. That is area 2. Alright, and now area 3. Let's see what this sounds like. This area is a lot more lonesome, and that is just, again, part of the musical example to build up each area and tell a story with music. As I came in, I'm sure you would have noticed that the music jumped in immediately, and that was also intentional because this is supposed to be very, almost surprising of a moment. We have a full score and full ideas appearing in the previous section, and now this section feels a lot more pulled back in comparison. If we come to the deviation side, there's a very obvious loneliness that comes in with being in this area. And yeah, if you come back to the critical path, we have some percussion that gives us more forward momentum yet again. Then if we come to these increase objective markers, we get more musical information. And hey, we jump again, complete all of the interactions in this area. Coming back to the deviation zone. Back on the critical path, as you want to progress the game. And then also I just want to make a second example of how the feeling of the immediate transition works when coming from the full section of area 2 into the full section of area 3. So we're walking, and wow, so sudden, so dramatic. And that is the entire point of why I've organized things this way. Then all that is left to go is area 4. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, very simple and solemn close for this final area. And yeah, not much else to discuss or describe about it. I hope all of that was interesting enough, made sense. Maybe it inspires or gives you clarity or context on something you could do for yourself in your own game, if you're an audio developer, if you're a regular dev. Yeah, I hope that was interesting to see and hear, just to give you an idea of what musical design is and can be.